we are making no promises at this time. The situation does look dire, but we are making every effort to see what additional funds can be recovered.
Why did it take so long to get to this stage in terms of a fund, a compensation fund?
Bless up, ABR family and viewers. Welcome back to the channel. It's your girl, Isabel Rose. And in this one, People's National Party Youth Organization President Gabriella Morrison calls on a government senator and government councillor, Marlon Morgan and Beverly Prince, to resign following their utterances as it pertains to revelation from Jessie James Clark of the high levels of fecal coliform in our water. And they tried to downplay same, calling Jessie James irresponsible and basically calling him a liar. As well as SSL Trustee says they have approximately 78 million Jamaican dollars to pay out to SSL investors whose money was stolen at the Stocks and Securities Limited. Stay tuned for the details at hand. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you all for the continued support. Now, ABR family, Jessie James Clark has been hailed as an hero for his revelation of high levels of coliform in our water that the government came out trying to downplay, to which we seen proof of same from Jessie James Clark, and now the Ministry of Health coming out to saying that there is indeed E. coli in samples of our water and that there's no need to be alarmed. Now, following the statement from the government senator and the government councillor, to which they were calling for Jessie James Clark to resign and saying that his utterances were irresponsible and reckless, basically calling him a liar. Gabriella Morrison, who is a opposition senator and also the president of the People's National Party Youth Organization, is therefore now calling for these two members of the government to resign following the revelation from the Ministry of Health, and in which turned out to be that Jessie James Clark was indeed telling the truth.
The People's National Party Youth Organization is condemning the government's reckless dismissal of credible public health warnings, and we're demanding the immediate resignation of JLP Councillor Beverly Prince of the Cashapart Division and a government senator, Marlon Morgan. This follows the NWC's confirmation of E. coli contamination in sections of Kingston and St. Andrews water supply, a crisis that the government initially downplayed and weaponized for political gain. Weeks earlier, it was Junior Shadow spokesperson on health and wellness, Jessie James Clark, who raised urgent concerns and called for the release of water quality data, warning of public health risk. Instead of taking the matter seriously, the government chose to ridicule and try to discredit Mr. Clark. On March 24, Senator Morgan branded Clark's call as false, reckless, and irresponsible. By April 1, Councillor Prince and the JLP's Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation Caucus went further and demanded Clark's resignation and accused him of spreading misinformation. But the NWC's admission makes one thing clear: Clark was right, and the government was wrong. This wasn't just political deflection on the part of the government. It was a dangerous attempt to silence legitimate concerns and mislead the public in the face of a health emergency. Prince and Morgan must resign, and the JLP must apologize. In addition, we're asking for an independent inquiry into the NWC's delayed disclosures and any government interference in the release of public health information. We also need answers from the Ministry of Health. Why are residents being told the water is safe when E. coli was confirmed? The PNP stands for accountability. While Jessie James Clark was advocating for transparency and the health of Jamaicans, the government was more interested in a political spin. Jamaica deserves leadership that puts the people first.
And we therefore know that this guy, Marlon Morgan, always seems to be, playing politics when it comes on to certain things, and when they're in the wrong is osh osh. I am standing with Gabriella Morrissey in calling for their resignation because they came out and they lied to the Jamaican people and they basically played politics right there, so with our health. A politics standpoint him and Beverly Prince coming offer, and Jessie James Clark wasn't looking at politics, he's looking out for the entire Jamaican when he come out and he let us know that high levels of coliform is in our water. This government is irresponsible and reckless with our health, with everything, with our security and everything, and they all need to go. They just need to call this election and they all need to be voted out.
My colleagues on the other side also had concerns about the water quality. For example, on May 16, 2024, Councillor Benjamin expressed concern about not only the rural divisions being exposed to substandard water, but other urban communities being affected by stating, and I quote, "The area that I represent provides 85% of the water to Mona. Therefore, the impact would not only be for the local residents." End quote.
Justice.
Councillor Lee Clark on June 18, 2024, asks about how rural schools can be protected from the poor quality water being distributed by the NWC, and asks if the schools should be advised to use filters and boil their water, keeping in mind that rural results were at 12% coliform positivity at that time.
Worse no.
In the same meeting, Councillor John Myers, who was defending the dirty water just now, also expressed concern about the quality of water that trucks were collecting from his rural division and selling it to water shops and homes.
So after 2 years of this SSL saga being unfolded, to which we know that 200 clients were defrauded of their investment at the Stocks and Securities Limited, to which our icon Usain Bolt is a part of that figure, and even a 78-year-old lady who was defrauded of some 60 million Jamaican dollars, to which Usain Bolt, I believe, is the hardest hit investor of that fraud. This day we learned from the trustee, Cadian Campbell, that they did retrieve some money and that they have on hand 78 million Jamaican dollars, which amounted to 500,000 US dollars to disperse to the investors. And they have a deadline via April 30th of this year to come in and show proof that they had indeed money in SSL. And with Usain Bolt losing approximately 6 million US dollars, which amounts to some billions, I don't know, that's just a drop in the bucket. Many are arguing the same thing. But I came across a snippet of interview between Simon Crosskill and this Cadian Campbell, and he was basically breaking down, why that was the amount that they retrieve. And he even went as far as to saying that they don't even know if they will be able to retrieve anymore. Right now it's looking grim. I am yet to hear from Usain Bolt if he'll come out and speak or if his lawyer will put out a statement. But I want you to listen to this snippet of interview between the trustee of SSL and Simon Crosskill.
That seems like a drop in the bucket to me.
Well, it is, yes, but it is what we have been able to recover by a mechanism that would have been implemented following the resumption of my duties after the May 31st, 2024 ruling by the Supreme Court.
So when you talk about these funds, this involves selling computers, desks, whatever assets the company had?
No, well, this was really a management fee mechanism that we used. You may recall that in September 2023, SSL received an insurance payout
of $1 million US.
$1 million US. Now, those funds were utilized during the temporary management. So when I resumed my duties, those funds were fully depleted. I have sought a mechanism to recoup some of that funds to be able to make a distribution to the actual victims of the fraud.
Before I move on, you mentioned that $1 million US, and I remember the Minister of Finance then suggesting that the government now wouldn't have to pay staff, they would use that money. Why wasn't that money directed to the victims?
Well, that question is best directed to the former temporary manager and the FSC. My approach would have been to earmark those funds for the victim, which is why I've sought to recover some funds to put into that pool. So I basically started from zero and built up to this $500,000, whereas at that point they had $1 million and it was utilized to pay staff and other temporary management expenses.
But weren't you a trustee at that time?
Yes, I was a trustee at that time, but the court, you may recall,
yes,
the Financial Services Commission applied to the court and got an injunction which prevented me from discharging my duties as trustee.
And that was overturned by Justice Batts?
Well, it was not so much overturned. He confirmed my appointment, that my appointment was valid, and ended the temporary management.
How many claimants are there who are going to seek some compensation from this fund?
All right, so this is specifically for those persons who may have been defrauded by the activities of Ms. Gina Panton, who is before the court, as we know. So it's just specifically those. And based on information available to me, I anticipate it will be less than 100, maybe closer to 50, but we will see.
Have you been able to claw back any of the funds from the accused?
No.
Wow. How did the 500,000 come about?
All right. As I indicated, the temporary management team, they utilize certain funds, both from the insurance proceeds and from what we will call the proprietary estate of SSL, and perform services that benefited what we refer to as the off-balance sheet unaffected claimants. So there are some services that SSL is still required to perform for certain clients. During the temporary management, those clients who were able to complete their arrangements during the temporary management did not have to pay a fee, but it meant that the burden of the cost then fell on the victims because the funds that could have been used to make a payment to the victims was used to cover the expenses. So the beneficiaries during the temporary management absorbed none of the costs. And what we have sought to do is to sort of rebalance the position so that at least there's some pool of funds available to the actual victims. So the victims now have a pool that they can participate in. It's small, granted, but it's a start.
It does seem like, with people like Bolt losing billions, it's like getting bulla for your birthday cake. Kadian, in terms of the amount of money that you've been able to gather so far, why not more? Why isn't there more available?
Well, the base from which we have recovered the funds, the client base is certainly far less than during the temporary management. A significant number of the clients, as I would have indicated, they got the benefit of the temporary management, so to speak, but they did not have to absorb any of the cost of that temporary management. So the burden fell on a smaller pool of clients. So that's a part of the challenge now. It's really a smaller pool of clients also that have to bear the obligations of getting back their estate, the money from the estate and so on, including the victims. So it's limited what we can recover.
Could there be more to come?
Well, we are making every effort, but we are making no promises at this time. The situation does look dire, but we are making every effort to see what additional funds can be recovered.
Why did it take so long to get to this stage in terms of a fund, a compensation fund, as small as it may be? Why did it take, over 2 years?
Well, you would have to break that into two. During the temporary management, a particular approach was taken, and they decided that the insurance proceeds would not be used as a victim compensation fund, as I would have used it if I was allowed to at the time.
So they got it wrong.
Well, I suppose they are going to say that they have a different perspective, and they could have done that. I disagree.
And did you disagree at the time?
Well, remember, I was injuncted from taking any role in SSL. The court had implemented that injunction, so I could not.
You all heard it for yourself. There's more questions in all of this than answer. We're still awaiting the Director of Public Prosecution to move her hand with some alacrity and to get to prosecute more persons in this matter. We know that it's not Jean and Panton alone, and this thing here is continuing to stretch. We're not sure of what will be the outcome of the director sitting on this Crow report, sitting on the SSL report. But ABR family, nevertheless, let me know what say in the comment section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel on the road to 30K and beyond. Help me to get there. Get this video to at least 7,000 likes. Please stay tuned for more videos and more updates. Big up on yourself.